Hey guys, welcome back to Motorcycle Maintenance Channel. Today on this episode we're going to show you how to drain and replace your radiator fluid. Alright, the first thing we need to do is loosen the radiator cap, which is right here on the brake side, the right side of the motorcycle. So take that off. Next thing we got to do is open the reservoir cap as well. We'll let that drain out so there's no vacuum there either. So after we loosen our reservoir cap underneath the driver's seat and behind the rear wheel and our radiator cap on the other side, we want to now drain the radiator fluid out of the bike. So I'm just going to take the safety wire off of here. Your bike probably won't have safety wire unless your track day organization requires it, or race day organization requires it. We're going to take that off. And then this is a 10mm socket. And there it comes. I did put water wetter in here and distilled water for racing, and I rinsed it out pretty good, but it's still coming out blue, and that'll happen. And I'm going to actually put blue antifreeze back in it, but it was distilled water and water wetter. But I've seen people change it a bunch of times, even with a green radiator fluid, and after 2 or 3 times of water wetter, it still comes out slightly green. That is pretty blue though. So we'll just let that drain. While that drains, I'll go get my new sealing washer. Alright, now if you haven't changed your radiator fluid in a while, you might want to get a few gallons of distilled water and pour it in there and just let it cycle through, and it'll flush out all the old liquids. But I change this once a year for track days, so I'm changing it now, actually twice a year. So I'll change it now, put radiator fluid back in it, and then in March, when the track season starts up again, we'll change it again and put water wetter back in it. So because we have these frequent radiator fluid changes, I'm not going to flush the system. But if this is your bike, and I think you're supposed to do this at 12,000 miles, it's been 12,000 miles and you haven't changed it, it might be a good idea to go ahead and put the fill screw back in there and then fill it up with distilled water, and then pull it out and let it drain out again, and then do that maybe twice with $2 worth of distilled water, a couple gallons, and drain it out. But like I said, I'm going to do this again here in March, so there's no reason for me to I'm just not going to flush it. It gets changed pretty regularly. All right, so there we go. Here's the sealing washer that has to be changed each time you do this. And the part number for your 2017 CBR1000 is 90463 ML7-000. It's a little copper washer. And we will put that into its place. And I'm putting regular radiator fluid back into it and not using water. Not because I'm scared it's going to freeze here in Texas, because it probably won't. But if it did, it'll have antifreeze in there, so it won't freeze. But the radiator fluid's really good for the internal aluminum parts of the engine. So it's good to have it in there. The water is not exactly great for it. Unless you do like pure water like some people do. I don't do pure water though. 12 Newton meters. There we go. And I'm not going to re-safety wire it because, like I said, in 6 months I'm going to have to put water in there, and then I'll safety wire it at that time. But most people who don't race aren't going to have this safety wired. All right. Now we got to fill it up. We're using genuine blue Honda radiator fluid. And this is a messy job. Kind of shake it a little bit. There will be lots of air bubbles, and we'll get to how to fill those in a second. So now we're going to fill our reservoir tank up. So we're going to fill up our reservoir tank, and luckily I have this really unique funnel because it is hard to fill up just because of where it is. But I'm going to rest it in like that and start going. So we'll start pouring. There we go. I think that's to the top. So that's the overflow valve. When you overfill your reservoir, it'll come out of that little hose down there by the drain bolt. And it's okay to overfill this because if there's air bubbles in it, it's going to suck water out of your reservoir. So we're going to have to come back here and fill that again. But right now we have this topped off to its max level, and we have the radiator which seems like it's topped off to its max level, but we're not done yet. What we're going to do now is start the motorcycle for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we're going to pop the throttle and rev it up real high, and that's just going to help kind of flush the air bubbles out of the system. And as we do that, the radiator fluid's going to drop or suck radiator fluid from here, and as it drops, we're going to continue to refill it. But it's a very important step because you don't want bubbles in that line. If there's air bubbles in your fluid, it could cause your motorcycle to overheat and ruin your engine. So we're going to put the timer, and that way we'll know when 2 or 3 minutes passes. So we're back here into the reservoir again. We started it, we burped it. Now we're just going to top this reservoir back off again. And you'll notice that after a certain point, a certain level point, it'll dump water out of the hose over there by the fuel cap. There we go, it's full. And the fact that the levels in the reservoir tank didn't drop that much tells me there's probably not a whole lot of air bubbles left in it. And if there is air bubbles, any bubbles, if it needs fluid, there'll be fluid in the reservoir tank. Conversely, if it doesn't need fluid, as I'm tipping the bike over or leaning it, since I kind of overfilled the reservoir, it'll come out of that hole, it'll come out of that pipe over there. It's not, you don't want a whole bunch of it coming out, but a little bit's not going to hurt it. All right, guys, that is how you flush and change your radiator fluid. Stay out of the grease, everybody.